Good afternoon. Yeah. Michael mentioned, I'm director of the Center for Religion and Spirituality here at our role is to extend the mission of the university and bridge that mission to the larger church, connecting academia and reflection, theological reflection with the actual lived realities of the people of faith, something we'll be talking about today. The cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are one is the message of Laudato Si and the message of today's panel. As Pope Francis reminds us that these cries are not distant in faraway places that we don't know about, but they affect us right where we are in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our university, and in our very own lives here at LMU. He also invites us in Laudato Si to a way of seeing the world and seeing one another, cosmovision, some may say, where we really come to understand the spiritual truth we have heard from the mystics throughout the centuries, that we are one in more ways than we imagine. So today's conversation meets at the intersection of care for the common good, care for one another, and how university life might enliven and dream up what this call of oneness means for each of us in our own departments. And I'm very thankful that the CSJ Center for Justice and Reconciliation is inviting us to this dialogue together to move out of our small silos, small departments, and listen to one another how we are hearing this call of Laudato Si. And of course, this call aligns perfectly well with the university's spiritual traditions and spiritual mission. And I think that we are uniquely placed to use that way of seeing the world and seeing one another to move forward the mission of Laudato Si. As we all recall, our university tradition, spiritual tradition, calls us to be one, that all may be one, that all may have life, that all we believe, all we understand and learn, and all we become may be for the greater glory of God. So, in that spirit, I invite you to use some of those Ignatius tactics and lessons and listen to your own hearts and your own thoughts and what resonates in your own hearts from today's conversation about how this conversation moves forward, what is happening in your own studies, your own departments, in your own personal call and mission. So today's panelists are going to speak for about 10 minutes each, and then they'll enter into dialogue with one another, and we'll take questions. So we'd like to invite the panelists now to come up. Conor Houston, Northern Ireland Director of the Vulcan Consulting and founder of Bold Leap. I'd also like to welcome Noriko Sato, Assistant Director of the D.K. Kim Foundation Business for Good program here at Loyola Marymount University College of Business Administration. And finally, Damian Willett, Associate Professor of Biology at the LMU Frank R. Seaver College of Science and Engineering. We're going to begin with Willett. Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. I want to thank CSJ for organizing this and inviting me. I was talking with Michael last week, and we were talking about this solution I've been playing with, and he said, "Why don't you tell us about the solution?" And so the solution here is to think about what's pictured up on the screen, which are forests. When we think about environmental justice and environmental restoration, we think sometimes when we think about the environment in general is about forest. And so I want to introduce, this is actually a picture of some redwood trees that are growing on the east side of Los Angeles. but growing here in our city and within the city limits of LA. And we can see when we close our eyes and picture a forest, we think of the tree canopy, we think of all the life that's there, the layers of the forest, the animals, the sounds, and so forth. And the solution we're playing with is something called a microforest. And what I don't want you to think about microforest as if it's where fairies live and it's really tiny little forest. Rather, it's a forest that has a small footprint, small in size. And where this idea comes from is Dr. Akira Miyawaki, who developed this idea in Japan over 50 years ago as a strategy for restoration in compact spaces, particularly on the urban landscape. And this idea was started in Japan, and it's been really pronounced in Europe for the past decade. And it's being used in a way to restore habitats, bring nature back to the places where maybe it's hardest to bring it back, such as the urban landscape. And a microforest, again, has this canopy layer, tree layer, shrub, and so forth. So it's dense. It's not just trees. It's more than that. It's a whole ecosystem at once. And why do I bring that up? Well, we've already started playing with this solution. So what you're looking at right here is a picture of Ascot Hills Park microforest. In November of 23, Seaver College, pictured here, students, staff, and faculty went out and planted a 10,000 square foot microforest, 850 native California plants. And unlike just planting trees where you plant a tree, here we planted the entire ecosystem at once, accelerating nature so you're planting the shrubs and all of those layers to bring the whole ecosystem added at once. And so you can see this area flagged with all these plants and students working and getting this going. And 2 years later, it turned 2 years back in November. And here's just some photos of it from a couple days ago, standing at the park. Some of these plants are getting quite tall. Everything we planted was about a foot tall. And this is me standing within the middle of the park a couple days ago, and it's taller than me at eye level. Maybe I don't get to see those. I live in that neighborhood right in front, so I'm also biased why this part of this is here. But we started this in an urban park. But things that were 1 or 2 foot tall are now 10, 11, 12 feet tall in just 2 years. It's growing quite quickly. And it's not just a restoration project, it's an engine. It's an engine for thinking about how we do science. I'm a biologist. This is the work we do, applied ecology. And so as scientists, we not just planted our 10,000 square foot microforest, we also planted didn't plant, we delineated a control plot. What's normal and what did we add? And from there, we've seen things, my student Stephanie Flores there monitors biodiversity, and we see 55% more animal biodiversity in this than in the control plot. My student Ashley down here is using creative ways, using genetic tools to look at how are we bringing back pollinators to the city, and using something like a cotton swab there, measuring the pollen, the DNA that's left behind by pollinators visiting there, and getting a signature of what life has come back to this area. And my student Sabraya, who graduated last year, coming up with a clever way to use nature to see nature. We use spider webs to look at the DNA left behind by organisms after they've come through in the middle of the night or early in the morning and leave their DNA behind so we can detect which species have been present. So all projects that come as an engine from here, and all of that is about the animals that are there. We're also interested in the plants themselves. And so on the left, you can see a beautiful oak, one of our live oak trees, and you see there's a tag at the bottom. And this is where we bring in our community. We engage with the community through citizen science by developing an app by students here in our computer science department. It works on this phone right here. You scan that QR code, and it gives us information that lets us track how that forest is doing. And in this time, the forest has done really well. 89% survivorship rate. It's growing really fast. And just a couple of weeks ago, I invited the National Park Service out. They toured this, and they restore habitats in the Santa Monica Mountains. And the folk from the National Park Service go, that's not a 2-year-old forest. That's a 4-year-old forest. It's what we would have expected in twice as much time. Not only that, it brings in this ability for us to measure things like how much carbon it's sequestering. Right now, it's sequestering a ton of carbon, valued at $160 a year. We project that 2 decades out, it's 55 metric tons of carbon valued at $10,000 a year. Why is that relevant? Is that the state of California passed a bill last year, 1305, that lets that carbon be sold as a mechanism for bringing in revenue to build new microforests. And so this is kind of what it looks like right now. What our dream is to take this beyond just this one plot. And so what you're seeing here is All Souls World Language Catholic School, We planted that first microforest November of 2023. We planted this one just November a couple months ago. And the idea is all those benefits that nature gives us from forest, and in this case, a microforest, can we extend it to some of the places across the city where we need it most, a vulnerable population of children? If you've been in LA, you know the asphalt parking lots of our schools, it can get well over 100 degrees. I have small kids. I go pick them up and that asphalt is just heating the environment there. Additionally, if you think about schools, every neighborhood has one. They're evenly distributed across the city. So it's a great place for us to work from because there's schools in every neighborhood to bring this to. And so using a really tight budget, $1,900, $1,900, we were able to build this microforest with the school. Additionally, we have this vision of extending this well beyond just this one school. And we're working on one here at LAUSD's Huntington Drive, which is just near Ascot Hills Park. Thursday, I won't be here because I'll be in Burbank working with them on building their microforest. They're tearing out this asphalt that you see pictured in the foreground. A goal to cool our schools, cool the urban landscape, and start to heal that environment. And then I know it's nowhere close to LA, but closer to Loyola, Chicago, just through a connection, I'm somehow doing one in Naperville, Illinois, through a friend. So if you have friends, let me know. Why are we doing this is that I have a goal, a vision of building 30 of these by 2030. And here's Microforce Connect, the idea to connect all of these we build here in Southern California. This is developed by a computer science student. We built this where the information we collect at each microforest using the app feeds in real time to this dashboard. And what you see on the right is the carbon sequestration, the nitrogen removed, and the dollar value, because not everybody speaks in metric tons of carbon. Some people need dollar values. So what is the ecosystem service value that this brings? And it communicates in that way. So that's what this dashboard is. And I'll just wrap up with this last idea is LMU is a school. And where we're planting all of these are schools. And there's an idea that maybe we want to build one of these here. And so behind you, right, behind you, up above this U-Haul building is a big piece of turf. And we're slowly working through this process of building the largest microforest in the state of California. If the university and everyone in this room and everyone in this university is behind this idea, here's the kicker, it's free. The city of LA will give us $105,000 to install this if we move by the end of the month to at least say, yes, we're going to move forward. I'm just being subtle here. I'm not saying we're doing it. I'm just saying I think it's a good idea, and my team has done their homework to show that this is something, if we speak to the ability of LMU to be a major player in this field and move us forward, we should walk the walk and put one of these on campus. And it can be an engine for education, an engine for ecosystem services, and a model for what other universities are doing. And I'll stop there. Sorry, here's some resources. Here's our lab website. We had a podcast on NPR last month that they talked about the microforest. You can scan that one. I know it's a bunch of QR codes, sorry. And then the app itself, if you're interested in the app. Sorry, thanks.
Wow, thank you so much. That is both inspiring and concrete. And I already have a million ideas of collaboration with our own department because we're working with churches and building some of those spaces. And that's one of the hopes, to prepare people. So I have a lot of questions for you for later. But I want to pause for a second and just allow us to just notice for a moment what you heard. What connected for you. And just a moment of gratitude for your work as well. Thank you. And Noriko, lots of ideas about business for good. We'd love to hear from you.
I can't believe I have to follow microforest. I am honored to be here. My name is Noriko. I am with the College of Business Administration. My day job is Assistant Director of the DK Kim Foundation Business for Good program, and we have many initiatives. that was started by the director, Professor Viswanathan. Madhu is teaching currently right now, so I am here instead of him. But I think what I want to share is what we're doing in B Corps 1910, which is the foundational course for all CBA College of Business undergraduate students. And it's a 2-credit class. They must take it. They have to pass with a C. I only get them once a week. There are currently this semester, there's 18 sections, 6 instructors, and I am one of them. And what we fundamentally want our undergraduate students to walk away after 15 weeks is to be able to think bottom up. As business students, and here we are at Loyola Marymount University with all our great mission and the underlining values that we have here, even as business leaders, we really need to meet the people where they are at. So there are posters outside in the atrium. I would love for you to look at them. It's a project that the students have to do in groups. I assign them into groups. They are given the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to think about as a group and as individuals what problems that exist in this world today that they want to solve with a business. So we're challenging our undergraduate business students to come up with a solution to address the needs and the problems of the people around the globe or domestically, even here within LA County, within the city of LA, to think what are the challenges and what can a for-profit business do to help the people. So we're trying to, and mind you, these are first year business students, so they haven't even taken any marketing, accounting, management, supply chain. They have no idea. And we're kind of throwing them in the deep end of coming up with a business plan and to work with their peers that they've never met before. But we tell them this here at LMU, at the College of Business, is the safest place for you to experiment. And it's okay. We're not asking for perfection. The doing is the learning. And I really think that here at LMU, especially for the students to be really brave and creative and to try whatever it is that they want to achieve as undergraduates in the College of Business so that they have that confidence once they leave the bluff to be a participant in the society, but having the heart. And the one big thing that you'll notice on the posters is we require each group for their company to come up with their conduct code. We call it the Business for Good code. What will your company always do? What will they never do? So the values within being a business leader, and we're not saying top down is bad. That's how the capital society and businesses functioned. But we just want to instill, especially in our LMU students, to think bottom up about everything. At the end of the day, we are all human beings here on this earth, and we really need to look out for each other, for the planet, for the good of the planet. And as business people, we want to make a profit so that we can bring it back in for the betterment of overall society. So that is the goal of B Corps 1910. 15 weeks in their first year, they're kind of lost and it might get dissipated, but our goal is even if they're second years or third years, they kind of think, oh, did we learn something about that in our first year? But as if I hear a senior using the term bottom up, I know our job has been done. So that's what I do. And I thank CSJ for allowing us to be here and to dream big about what we can do. And my dream is that, yes, business for good resides within the College of Business, but I know the DK Kim Foundation and the monies that Mr. Kim has donated generously to LMU He wants business for good. It could be anything for good. It's this whole idea of bottom up that can be happening here at BCLA, at the School of Education, in Seaver, in Communications, in SFTV. It's for good. And that's what we want to instill here at LMU. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I have to say, as an alum and a parent with a son in the business school, I'm so proud of the work that the business school is doing in connecting mission with real life business experience. Thank you. Thank you for that. And now I'd like to introduce Conor as well, who will take us perhaps in a broader direction with the call of peace. We might know that this conversation is needed at this moment. So thank you.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Conor Houston, and I am visiting from Ireland. It's a great honour to be back at LMU. I've had the privilege for the last 6 years of being the visiting chair of Irish Studies here at this university. So this is, I think, my 8th trip to LMU. So it really does feel like a home away from home. And it's always special to be here. I feel a real sense of peace and community and people striving to build a better society every time I come to LMU. So it's truly special to be back. And I'm very grateful to Michael and to everybody involved in organizing this conference for asking me to participate today. I'm very inspired by the previous two speakers who are taking real action to build a better society and a better world, and the action you're taking in literally transforming the physical landscape is really inspiring. And I'm going to have to steal that idea and bring it back to Belfast. I think we could do with some microforests there as well. So the theme today of dream big and dream different is one very close to my heart, because I spend a lot of my time not as an environmentalist, but actually as somebody who tries to inspire, particularly in young people, this sense that they can change the society in which they live. And the reason for that is because when I was a teenager, I was very inspired by the generation of leaders in Northern Ireland that helped to build peace in the place that I call home. So I come from a little village just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland called Hollywood. So again, another link. It's been made famous by, for those of you who follow golf, Rory McIlroy. He comes from the same village as me. And he's definitely put our tiny village on the map. We see a lot of Americans driving around looking at the golf course there and where he grew up. But when I was young, Northern Ireland was maybe not somewhere people would have rushed to get to, because it was a place mired in bloody conflict and a very divided society. Without giving a history lesson, it was a very challenging time to grow up there as a teenager, and so many people in our society were died or affected by the conflict. And in 1998, when I was 15 years of age, a historic peace accord, the Good Friday Agreement, was passed. And it was an extraordinary moment which had a huge impact on me, not just because it made the society I lived in a more peaceful place, but because it showed what happens when people from radically different backgrounds come together for the greater good, the cause of peace. Our conflict in Northern Ireland was considered by many political scientists in the 1990s to be intractable. That is, it couldn't be solved. It was just a conflict that would have to be managed. And the most extraordinary thing is that for 28 years, our peace agreement has held, and Northern Ireland is now a modern, progressive, and fairly normal society. That is not to underestimate. Like any society, many challenges remain. But in a generation, we have completely transformed as a society. And that, I hope, at this time should give hope to the world. And I suppose what I've been interested in, I've had the privilege in my community of being a lawyer. I practiced lawyer. I wanted to help communities and help people. So I was a human rights lawyer. I then ended up playing a number of civic roles in society. And to go bottom up, I spent a lot of time in civic activism, trying to go out into community grassroots organizations and support them, empowering them with information, doing briefings on big issues. And when there was a big political debate or issue, I would create a little workshop or a little presentation, and I would go to community groups and try and empower the community so that they understood what was happening. And in fact, I spent most of my time, if I wanted to really affect change in a community, I always went to the women, because the mothers tended to be the best women to empower in a community, to help them to understand the issues and how they can make a better life for their children. So I completely agree that keeping and empowering grassroots communities is central to any change that you want to bring about. I then went into politics, which is a difficult trade, a challenging trade, but something where I tried to promote my values, the things I believed in, and to work across the aisle in trying to solve problems. And I suppose I learned an awful lot in that, particularly in the current world where division seems to be at the heart of all politics, where you had to build relationships of trust to get things done. And the big takeaway from my time in politics was that we need to create a world in which we can disagree well, much better. So I have, from my legal, political, civic world, created a platform called Bold Leap. And Bold Leap is all about trying to, with individuals, with organizations, whether they're businesses or grassroots community organizations, trying to empower them to have values-based, courageous leadership. What is missing in the world right now is values-based leadership and courage. Leadership, real leadership, leadership that actually impacts people's lives, requires huge courage. And that's why I call it a bold leap. So a lot of my time is spent trying to empower and encourage particularly young people to take those bold leaps, because the world desperately needs it right now. I always say, if you want to affect change, you need to do three things, whether that be in fighting climate change or building a better democracy and society. Start with your passion and your values. What are the values? What are the things that really drive you and excite you? And start talking about them. Start using your voice, sharing your ideas, which is what conferences like this are all about. Because what will happen is something quite remarkable. You will attract like-minded people. I call it your tribe. The people who share those values will come around you. And when you have that values and that group of people, the next step is action to affect the change, to transform the society. The philosophist Margaret Mead has a great expression that never doubt what a small committed group of citizens can do when they work together. It's the only thing that ever has changed the world. And I suppose in the tiny place I come from in the world, a group, a generation of political leaders came together to put aside their enmities and historical differences for a common good and to build a peaceful, more progressive society. And if we can do that in Northern Ireland, we can do it anywhere. And it would be remiss of me not to, when I'm talking about the peace and the sustaining of our peace, not to say thank you to the people here in this room, to your country, to the United States, because the United States has been one of the most loyal friends to Northern Ireland and to our peace process for generations. From political leaders here who were part of our all-party talks, to those who have consistently shown up and turned up to support us when it was difficult in implementing that peace agreement. And it was a privilege yesterday to be here because Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi was visiting the university. And it was great for me to come and spend time with Speaker Pelosi because during the Brexit challenge that we faced in Northern Ireland as a result of the UK's decision to leave the European Union, Speaker Pelosi was one of our greatest defenders and advocates in protecting our peace agreement. And it was lovely to be able to come here yesterday to thank her on behalf of a generation. But also when we were upstairs speaking before the event, I said it is an extraordinary moment in the history of the relationship between the island of Ireland and the United States. Because when I was a teenager, US politicians used to come over and tell us how we had to behave and disagree well and put our differences aside and work for the common good. And I said, there's something ironic that I'm now in LA helping some community groups and politicians here to think about how they can put their enmities aside and work for the common good. And we talked about this baton of peace that we pass, not just within our own communities, but around the world. So I think the power of the relationship, if you have something that you believe in, if you're something you're passionate about, my country, Northern Ireland, where I come from, we have inspired people around the world. And I hope that through Bold Leap and the work that I will continue to do, and many people in Ireland continue to do, we can continue to be a friend and support the efforts here in the United States. It's your 250th birthday this year. I genuinely believe that the best days of the United States are in front of you. And the reason I believe that is because in every visit I've had here to Loyola, but also I've traveled extensively across the US. It is your young people who remain committed to the values of your declaration and the values enshrined in your constitution. And I know as they take more bold leaps and be more courageous in speaking up and speaking out, the greatest days for this country are ahead of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Conor. Your words of hope and courage feel like a healing balm that we need in this moment. One of the questions that really is helping me get through some of the moments that we've been living through is just, where are we finding hope? You know, where are we finding courage? And I think all of you, your call of young adults and their role and commitment to the work of justice is a place of great hope for our country. I'm wondering if we can take just a moment for each of you to respond to each other, what resonated or the intersections of the work. Of course, Laudato Si looks at this call for oneness in various areas, creation, how a relationship with food, with each other, with communities, in our differences, in the call of peace. It really extends in many different ways. But I'm wondering, as you heard each other, where did you find intersection and connection?
Barcode. There, how about trees?
Yes.
If I may, I was encouraged to learn. We were chatting actually before the session about business for good and thinking that over 5,000 students have moved through this. As they move through LMU, they get this exposure. Earlier, we heard Nancy talk about how students who move through Loyola Chicago all get this exposure to sustainability, and then they even come back and take a second class. And to see that so many students who move through LMU and through your program get that starting point. They walk in perhaps thinking business is this way, and you bring something that says, let's step back, let's take a bigger look at this. And I love that you plant that seed. I'm a big fan of seeds. You plant that seed in there and link it with the SDGs and things like that. That's brilliant that you start with that point. So I'm very encouraged. And I didn't know that's the way that it works. So learning today here in a school. And then inspired, that was just phenomenal. What you're doing is amazing. I think there's actually Microforest already in Belfast. You guys are ahead of us, actually. But thinking about the idea of how you bring parties together, there's so many people at stakeholders to get something done. We heard that again from Nancy too. And to see from the other side and bring that in, and what's the value that they see, and be able to speak that language to each of those stakeholders. You articulated so well. I really appreciate and inspired by what you've done. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And I was equally inspired by your presentation and by both of you, because I think in essence you capture how a bold leap happens. You've made a bold leap. You've done it. You've actually planted a physical forest, and you're inspiring others. So you've had your values, what you believe in. You found the people, because as you say, there's a team of people who got behind this vision and idea, and then you've made it happen. And of course, now you've made it happen, people are going, "Oh, how can we get involved?" So it's a great real life example of exactly what it is I'm talking about in terms of business. What again, I agree. The planting of a seed. And particularly, it's why I do so much work with young adults, young people, because if we can help shape those values from a young age, then they will just take them naturally into what they do in the future. And I spend a lot of time in the business community. I'm advisor to people in the business community, and I see business as a force for good. I think that a lot of people in business are in business because they like solving problems, and they're very interested then in, as appropriate, figuring out how their business can help to solve problems. I'll give a good example actually in Belfast. A very good friend of mine runs a charity which hands out food to people who are in poverty through parcels. And one of the challenges he was having was the demand on services was huge, and getting the parcels out in a timely manner to people was challenging. And obviously with fresh food, you need to get it moving quickly. And an event like this, which brought together a diverse range of people, he was talking about what he was doing. And in the audience was one of the directors from Amazon who works in Belfast. And she said, "Well, hang on a second. We have thousands of vans driving around Belfast every single day. Surely we can help." And so basically Amazon partnered, and they just now, as they're doing their deliveries, have a smart system where they pick up the food and drop it off. An example where a big corporate, a big giant, has been part in a small place in the world of affecting change. So I am a big believer that business can be a force for good. And just on that, business and civic society in Northern Ireland was critical to the peace being won and the peace being sustained. So we do rightly give credit to our political leaders. But one of the things that I stress in any society is the people who do the everyday peace building, the everyday affecting change, are the grassroots community leaders, are the business leaders, are the civic activists. They're the people who really change the society. So I think it's really important to always remember that.
I just think this, the sharing of ideas of our backgrounds, are the humanness of what we have, of why we're Homo sapiens on this earth. And yes, it's crazy making, but we all have a heart, and we all have our beliefs. And I want to help make this micro forest happen. What can we do? I mean, we have Marcom, we have all these people in the building who need to get behind this. I mean, where are our advancement people? Don't we have alums who would be like, yes, LMU should be the first? I mean, there's so much that I think, and Marianne, Michael, you have brought us together in this community, even from last night. And I think if we can continue to do this, peace will happen. And this is, across whatever. Here, we're thinking big for LMU. I think you're allowing us to break down the traditional silos that we have in higher ed. I come from business, and I really don't understand all these silos, because I'm just like, why can't everybody just sit around the table? Let's all discuss and brainstorm. But I don't know, this barriers to entry. No, but here we are. we all care. Let's all get together and make things happen, like a micro forest here on the bluff. I think that would be fabulous. But so.
I just add one thing on that. I think you raise a really important point, which is the role of universities. I'm a very proud alum of Queen's University in Belfast, and I feel like a close friend of LMU, given how much time I've spent here. But universities are truly special places, and I agree with you. I think that they remain unique in the world in that they are a safe space. They are places where ideas can be born, where people can be educated and empowered, where they can trial things, whether that be in business or in social enterprises or initiatives. So I think the roles that universities play within our societies is hugely important. And my advice to the leadership of any university is be bold and protect that, because there's fewer and fewer spaces for that deep thinking and bringing together such a diverse range of perspectives. I suspect sometimes the reality is that the politics of a university can be probably as brutal as the politics in your Congress. But that doesn't mean that you can't find ways for events like this, which bring various faculties and people involved in the university together to share ideas. Because, as I say, I know from Queen's University and Ulster University, two universities in Northern Ireland, they are safe places. They have been the civic square, and they have provided an incredible space for us to think deeply, to take action, and to encourage each other to continue to build peace. So I think it's really important just to underscore how special a place and space a university is within a city or region.
Thank you for that. I agree. And I'm especially excited that this work really aligns with who we are, our identity, as we think about LMU and our unique place in the larger LA area and other universities. This mission alignment being brought forth in creative ways, right? In business, in the work that you're doing as well. Makes a big impact. I'm wondering now if we can take questions from the audience. I'll stand up and hand the microphone. What resonated for you? What questions might you have for our panelists?